Yeah. I have to say, Count Corla, as the person who asked the Business Committee for this debate, it just once again highlights the really sickening, I'm sickened at this stage, injustice of the way the government manipulated the speaking arrangements so that the people who asked for this debate get 6.5 minutes after we've had about 5 or 6 government speakers and the minister is gone because he doesn't want to hang around for the rest of the parties. And this is from a party that have been ringing the alarm bells about the housing crisis since I entered the Dáil in 2011. It just makes me sick, but it's typical of what's going on in here. And then we get the nonsense and rhetoric about housing for all. 4 billion a year, tell the truth, right? Tell the truth. I got a parliamentary question asking about this, and what you're actually delivering in terms of investment is 12 billion in direct exchequer funding, 3.5 through the LDA and 5. Now add that up. That's 18.5 over 9 years. That is just over 2 billion a year. Okay? That's what you're actually putting in. So the rest is coming from the private sector. And when you look through, you're hoping it will come through the private sector. And a big chunk of that, by the way, even the public investment, is HAPS, RAS and leasing money that is being put into the pockets of the private sector. And when you look at the figures, when you say the state is now going to be the biggest deliverer of housing, no, it's not. Look at the figures. 57% of the plan that you're proposing is going to come from the private sector, because you just have to add up the numbers for each of the years. Right, 142.3 in public and affordable housing, the rest coming from the private sector. So the dependence on the private sector, which has led us to the crisis we are now in, is as a direct is continued in this policy. That's the truth. And then you break down the affordable even further, or for that matter, the social housing. How much of it are you going to get through Part 5, i.e. from the private sector? Answer, we can't tell you when we put in a parliamentary question. How much of the affordable housing is actually going to be affordable? How much are you actually hoping to source through Part 5, i.e. from the private sector? We can't tell you. Right? So this is more of the nonsense that we've had for the last number of years. You know, the Minister talks about protecting tenants. Well, I'll tell you what the test of whether this government is actually going to protect tenants is when the tenants in St Helens Court, who I've been talking about for 4 years, who are threatened with mass eviction by a vulture fund, are protected from eviction, which they are not now. Right? And despite saying it to this government and to the last government, here's an example of how vulture funds are unjustly mass evicting tenants who've done nothing wrong. What are you going to do about it? Answer, zero. Because you don't want to stand up for the vulture funds. That is the truth. Because you invite them in, you give them tax breaks. Now, I haven't got time, because there's a pathetic amount of time. I have to hand over to Deputy Barry in a minute. But if you want a little example of what actual radical emergency action might look on housing, look at what 57% of the population of Berlin said over the last week. They said, expropriate the vulture landlords. Expropriate them. Now, I'll tell you, if it's justified in Berlin to deal with unaffordable rents and lack of tenants' rights, by God, it's doubly more justified here. Because they got all those vultures, cuckoos, corporate landlords, got their property from us via NAMA. 40 billion worth, at nominal value, it's probably worth about 100 billion now. And they get tax breaks, and they then get the day-to-day money through HAPS, RAS and leasing. We're paying at every level, but we own nothing. They charge unaffordable rents, they can evict people. We pay for it. They run away with the profits, and tenants are screwed. Right? That's the reality of what's going on. The income eligibility thresholds for social housing for 5 years. I've been saying, will you raise the threshold so people aren't being whacked off the list? Nothing done. A review being promised for 5 years. It goes on. Talk, 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 but no action to actually deliver the affordable and public housing and the tenants' rights and the security that people need, because you are still dancing to the tune of the big money people who get rich from property.